Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Or as we say, Assalamu alaikum, peace upon you all. We are so excited in this third day of the Global Conference for Scientists, Networks, and Diaspora to have with us Professor Dr. Alan Goodman. It's a privilege and an honor. Dr. Goodman is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and serves on the selection committees for the Rhodes and Schwarzman Scholars and the Gedan Prize. He also serves on the Council for Higher Education Accreditation International Quality Group, Advisory Council, and the Board of Trustees of the Education Above All Foundation. Of course, his day job is the current executive officer of the Institute for International Education, which marked its centennial year in 2019. IIE promotes the exchange of scholars and students, rescues scholars, students, and artists from persecution, displacement, and crisis, as well as conducting research and international academic mobility, and administers the Fulbright program, which is sponsored by the US Department of State. Dr. Goodman has been a very, very good friend, colleague, advisor, mentor for many, many years. And I learned so much from him. And I hope that through this contribution, this keynote, that he will inspire us and catalyze us to make us do things, to make a difference in this world by working together and collaborating. So, and of course, he's also on our advisory board for the conference. So thank you very much, Dr. Goodman, and the floor is yours.
Rana, thank you very much for having me and the very good idea to refocus the world's attention on what diasporas mean and can do. Of course, it's impossible to refuse any request from Dr. Tajani. We first met as a result of her first Fulbright, and she has gone on in everything she's done to be an exemplary change maker, leader, thinker, and to often work outside the world of her science to make the world a better and less dangerous place for us all. I want to commend the organizers of this symposium for focusing on diaspora, because in this century, it's possible to think of diaspora maybe in a different way than we have in the past. Throughout history, diaspora is a word associated mostly with negative events and negative energy. You use the word and you connote images of people fleeing, natural and man-made disasters, people being forced to resettle elsewhere under conditions of adversity, and often facing lifelong prejudice and systemic inequality. But I'd like to think for a moment about the origin of the word. It is from the Greek, diaspiero, and it suggests another way to think about the potential of diasporas and what diasporas do. Diaspiero means to sow over. So there's an agricultural dimension to this. It focuses on seeds that can be replanted in other places and actually flourish. And we know that seeds travel, seeds get replanted, and seeds renourish and replenish us all. And maybe that's a better way to think about diaspora historically, but also in our time. To science, diasporas are not a new phenomenon. And we do know, that, like seeds, that scientists are able and adept at replanting themselves in different environments. Occasionally, even empires realize the value of diasporas by creating conditions for science without borders. The ancient libraries in the ancient world of Athens, Rome, and Baghdad, the leaders of those societies granted residence to scientists coming from all over, exemption from military service, exemption from taxes, and even issued travel documents that made it possible for scientists to cross many borders, even during times of conflict and actual war. So diaspora has been recognized in history negatively, but also positively. And leaders and institutions that have embraced what diasporas can do often contribute in major ways to science and learning. And that's what I think the diaspora we're talking about today is doing. Our mission at IIE is to rescue scholars and to help conditions and create conditions for them and their families where they can sow again, where they can be replanted, where the seeds of their knowledge can germinate and they can continue their work in safety. Scholar Rescue produces actually its own ecosystem. So let me share 3 observations about what that ecosystem entails from over a century of us doing this work of Scholar Rescue. First, Scholar Rescue creates environments where women thrive. And we're told this over and over again from our female scientists and scholars who we have helped. It's useful to remember, important to remember that in the last century, the great scientist, Marie Curie, who won 2 Nobel Prizes, the only person to do so in different fields, began her studies in Poland, which was then part of the Russian Empire, and had to study secretly at an underground university, which was not permitted by the authorities, and eventually had to leave the territory of Poland for France to continue her studies. It was there that a diaspora welcomed her, made it possible for her to go on to her further studies, which led to her science and her fame. Now, in this century, over 30% of the scholars we rescued today are female. And I hear so often from them that the fact that they moved to a different place, even though they had grave threats that caused them to do that, enabled them to do research, to teach, to have an academic freedom to realize their potential that they might not have had if they had not fled or if they remained in their home countries. So diaspora, Science Without Borders, can, especially in the case of women, make it possible to achieve more than they might have achieved at home. And it takes everybody, the welcoming society, the diaspora from where you've come that are in that welcoming society, and institutions that make that happen. Secondly, Scholar Rescue contributes to an ecosystem where universities in America and Europe, all over the world, universities are beginning to think that's part of the mission of the university to rescue scholars, to rescue science and learning, to make it possible for displaced scientists and professors to continue their work in safety for the benefit of all. And that's a new function for higher education. It's a new way to think about the university, and it's certainly going to be needed more than ever before. And the third thing that has surprised us at the Institute about the Scholar Rescue ecosystem is it often, in a majority of the cases, allows the rescued scholar to be in touch with their students and colleagues and do thesis supervision back home in a way that they might not have been able to do it if they were still in the country. All of them want to do it. In a survey of our fellowships, more than 60% of our scholars have said they were able to contribute back to their home country from a safe vantage point, more than half of their research, their teaching, and their scholarly activities. So the ecosystem that we have, even though it may involve leaving one country and going to another, one continent and going to another, enables the rescued scholar to give back to their students at home. Of course, technology greatly enables this. But even if we had the best technology in the world, if we didn't have the scholars who wanted to give back, who wanted still for their knowledge and their lectures and their expertise to be somehow propagated, shared with students in their home country, if we didn't have that outlook, it would be, even though if we had the best technology in the world, it wouldn't happen. We're fortunate in respect that some 400 universities now welcome our rescued scholars. They're on every continent, in every field, in every discipline. And we've never been busier. We rescued our first scholar in 1920 from the Bolshevik Revolution, then tearing apart Russia. Some things have not changed. And it's not a good thing that we are busier today in scholar rescue in assisting this diasporous science community. It's not a good thing that we are busier today than we were during the Nazi period, the Soviet period, World War II, the regional conflicts. In fact, in the past, in the 10 months of of 2022, we have had more requests for Scholar Rescue Fund fellowships and help than any year since 1920. We're there. We want to help. We are known globally, and we try to rescue science and learning one scholar, one family at a time. So thank you for calling attention to the diaspora as a force in a positive way, as a force for good in our world, and for all of the organizations that help us with scholar rescue. Rana, thank you very much for inviting me to share a few thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing with us your reflections on the terminology that's used, the history, and how we can not look at it as a negative thing, but actually as a positive thing. To me, that's fundamental. A lot of research, and sometimes the lens that we adopt, which is maybe marred by the media, that they always want to have something that's sensational, that's negative, that's notorious. And unfortunately, we sometimes even design our research looking for the negative. But we should be looking at the same time at the positive, because through evolution, we evolved to have both, right? And we survive and thrive and are resilient because we deal with both. And that's how we are able to survive. And so thank you for bringing that up and highlighting the positive goal and the positive ethos of this conference, of how can we harness this potential in a positive way to give back, and to look at diaspora in a more broader context than just fleeing or having to go because of a disaster or a war, but sometimes by choice, or especially scientists, because they're following their curiosity, pursuing their passion, wherever their curiosity takes them, they go. And I think that is so wonderful and beautiful, and also a hallmark of how we survived as a species, and part of the traits that kept us, that evolved in us and were selected for, to keep that curiosity always there. So thank you for that.
And when women have the opportunity to pursue their science, their learning, to get educated, and even when they have to go to another country for that purpose or to be safe, it's a tremendous investment in the growth of science and learning. It's a tremendous investment in a future generation. And women seem to have an ability to be the best seeds we have to thrive, to roll their sleeves up and say, well, okay, I can do it for my family, and I can do it for my science, and do it together. And so I think women have a special place in the world in saving us all.
Thank you for those words. I couldn't agree more. Not just because I'm a woman, but those are the facts on the ground. And it transcends generations, right? Whatever she's doing affects her children and her grandchildren, all that, and
Yes.
and it affects both males and females of the wider community. So absolutely, investing in a woman, you're investing in a whole society going forward. And thank you for supporting them and thinking of an individual as a family, not just as an individual. And I think that is very forthcoming from your organization. When you support the scholar, you're supporting the whole family. And rarely that happens, by the way. Mostly they're supporting the individual because they come from a mindset of, oh, it's just a male. He doesn't have any, he's not worrying. But just by adopting the attitude of you're taking women into consideration, which is a more human, that there's always a family, and that encourages men to take care of their families as well, and be active caregivers at the same time to support the woman in what they want to do. So all that is amazing, and we need to highlight that more. Produce more reports, document more stories, so that that becomes the norm rather than the exception. Maybe one,
yes.
one follow-up question in the remaining couple of minutes that we have. You have been at the IIE has been around for a long time, like you said, 100 years. So how have you been following up with the alumni? And I don't think they're alumni in that context. They're continuous members. Like, I feel I'm always part of your organization and the fellowship, and it's never that it ended and started. It's just one continuum. So how do you follow up with them? Because they themselves constitute a network of huge potential. So how do you follow up with them? And in what ways have you been able to reap those benefits so that others who are listening can learn from this? Because part of the objectives of the conference is to highlight best practices that other diaspora networks can adopt.
So we all need to do a better job keeping in touch with alumni. The internet helps us, social media helps us, but sometimes people, it makes them vulnerable as well. They're subject to be traced or tracked. So I think we first have to be very sensitive to alumni who may be still in difficult positions or have family back home in difficult positions. But we ask people regularly to report to us papers presented, patents awarded, scientific discoveries recognized. And we try every year to produce, in the case of the Scholar Rescue Fund, a listing of what has happened. And every year it grows because people are proud of what they are able to achieve. They're actually publishing academic work, sharing results of scientific experiments. So the science community especially lends itself to enabling us to see what alumni are doing. We also work with women leaders in social justice and community development. And again, we ask them, and we've been studying them for over 10 years as a result of a Ford Foundation project we did for 10 years. What difference did the fellowship make? What difference did you make after getting the education, returning home and building your community or expanding your community development organization? And the results are very, very encouraging. People actually do a lot more than they thought they could do. Education enables them to do a lot more than they thought they might be able to do. And it's created a network, especially among women leaders, of solving problems. So I had this problem in setting up my organization. 3 younger women have the same problem in another country. And so they now can get in touch with each other and say, well, what worked? What didn't work? How do I get additional resources to help me do that? So it's not just having a diaspora in the case of your meeting and symposium. It's having a way to connect members of diasporas who face similar problems and know that they can solve a problem with your advice or your support or your help. And it's very important. And sometimes it's just the human interaction, alumni to alumni, that makes all the difference.
Absolutely, thank you. Those are very wise words because it's about the connection. It's about the experience, the ecosystem, as you said, the enabling ecosystem that is only maintained by the members connecting and talking to each other. And like you said, science makes that as a result of what scientists are, right? They want to work together. They know they can only do better if they collaborate, if they communicate, if they share. So that in itself allows such a network to really thrive and survive in a good way. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Goodman. I really appreciate not just me, the audience, the whole symposium, and I'm sure all the alumni and all the diaspora networks who are watching and listening, and who will follow up later, because this will all be on YouTube, so that those who are not able to attend will and maybe reach out and see how we can extend these networks, how we can create these enabling ecosystems, and together to make this world a better place. And hopefully there will be less and less of these wars and strifes and natural disasters because of the efforts that you and your organization does, and everyone else. So thank you very, very much, and have a great rest of the day and a great weekend.
Thank you for inspiring me by your life and work, and thanks for the great idea to have this network.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.